Good morning and welcome to one of today's Hashtag Wednesdays weekly session. We have the Community Safety Partnership team with us today to talk about the Let's End Hate Crime 2021 funding opportunity. My name's Roma. I'm the Commissioning Officer at Tameside Action Together. And joining us today, we have Terry from the Community Safety Partnership team. So I'll hand over to Terry.
Thank you, Roma. Yes, hello everybody. My name is, let me stop my screen. My name is Terry Finn. I work with Tameside Council and I'm having a problem with my IT. Give me a second. Oh, I think I've lost you. Just one second. There we go. I think we're back. There we go. Lovely. Yeah, thanks for the chance to speak to everybody today. My role within the council is grandly titled Community Cohesion. And that's mainly around sort of connecting groups across the borough to make sure that people can give it their best. So wherever you're from in Tameside, part of my role is trying to connect people and wherever possible, find funding to support appropriate projects that sort of feed into that main aim. And the reason why I think a few of you are on the call today is because we just launched, with the help of Action Together, a hate crime awareness fund, which has been funded by GMCA, the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. And again, if I repeat myself, I do apologise, but this comes about twice a year where there is a February and October hate crime awareness week across the wider Greater Manchester. Tameside, I think it's the first time we have tried to place funding out in the community from GM to Tameside and then into the community. So this fund is really trailblazing in that sense for Tameside. So we're trying our best to engage as many of the communities as we can to bid into this modest pot around the hate crime awareness banner. And I'll show you a bit of a slide in a second that I've been working on across other groups to try and promote that idea. So the hate crime awareness is all about raising people's understanding, awareness of how to report hate crime. I'll put my police hat on for a second. Going back into my previous police service, it was very apparent that people would tell you that they were suffering from abuse because of race, ethnicity, and other dynamics of what the broader topic is, but it wasn't being reported. And that always did surprise me. There seems to be, or has been, a bit of an awakening recently that people understand that to have a cohesive society, you must be able to speak out properly about what's impacting you. You cannot progress as an individual if you are being constantly abused. And that's why I'm a big fan of supporting the idea of improving the level of reporting. Yes, there's an impact for the police, therefore, and other agencies in dealing with those reports, but that's not a reason not to do it. I think it's very, very important that we do so. So what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way is there's money out there for groups that are already linked in with a diversity to think about, okay, I've got a project on the boil here, but I need some bit of cash to make it work. And that's what this fund is all about. I'm sure you'll have read it already on the Action Together website, which is why you're here today. And the closing date for applications will be the 1st of April. And we'll try and get the funding out as quickly as we can shortly after that. So please do consider bidding towards the criteria, which I'll remind you about in a very quick second. Any questions so far? No, that's all great. Right, so loosely, it's about raising awareness of hate crime and increasing the reporting of hate crime. So more specifically, we'll be looking for projects that would raise awareness, obviously, through an activity, and it could be a catalyst for further conversations or delivering a longer term project to help local people find out more about hate crime. Thirdly, helping to challenge or change behaviours, narratives and perceptions of hate crime, and highlight the support of third-party reporting centres and encourage more victims to report and contact police or those third parties. So it's quite straightforward in some ways, and the best examples I've seen across different areas nationally, a lot have been social media based. So I'm not saying don't have your own ideas, but I'm very keen to think about supporting projects that might develop, let's say, something which we can use again and again. So let's say something around a very simple video, which gives a message around hate crime and hate crime reporting, would, I think, go down very well as an asset to be used again. So those are my simple ideas. And I'd be very keen to take any questions you have or any concerns you may have. As I said, the modest sums are there. So it's £1,000 maximum per organisation per bid this time round. But I'm looking, and Roma and I were discussing this the other day, of increasing the size of the pot. And I'm pretty positive that's going to happen. So don't be alarmed by the amounts. We are flexible, but the maximum right now is approximately 1,000. So do give it your best shot. But my initial steer would be around sort of social media stuff, but not exclusively. You know, we're very keen to support any group that's got any innovative ideas that they may feel would support the promoting of what hate crime is all about. If I may, Roma, can I just share a very quick presentation from my screen? Don't know if you can see that yet, but let me just jump onto my, my screen, and here we go now. Let's see, can you see that slide?
I can see your screen, yeah.
Lovely, thank you. So I don't want to go crazy with this because I don't want to have you know, too much PowerPoint sort of stifles debate sometimes and discussion, but this is a presentation I've used a few times across different parts of Tameside in different times before lockdown, and it's gone down particularly well, and it gives people a flavour of what hate crime is all about. And although funding is generally available just for those 2 weeks, February and October each year, I want to go broader than that and try and keep this a lively and a very much a current topic throughout the year. So this is always available for me to give to groups and present to groups over the year rather than just in those 2 weeks. So let's just whiz through this really quickly. So when I present this, generally I talk about what do you think hate crime really is. So if it's a group of 10 or 15 people, ask the person next to you, what do you think about it? What is it? How's it affected you? And that can generally instill quite a bit of life into that room, because from this generally comes quite lively debate, because we're trying to encourage mixed groups, but it can be very useful to get a feeling about, well, actually, I've spoken to some ladies that face abuse every single day, but don't report it, because what's the point, is the view, which is quite sad, but that's the reality of many people. We then go into details around what hate incidents and hate crimes are, having a stronger understanding of the difference. The reporting is important because any crime can be deemed a hate crime based on the motivation behind it, and that will increase the sentences that can be attached to that crime if it's proven to be hate related. Don't worry about the presentation. I can always resend this out to you guys later to have a look at if you want to. So try and break down what a hate instance is and what a hate crime is. But it's different. It's very important to differentiate, because once a crime has that lever of hate behind it, it does raise itself in terms of severity, not least of which around sentencing. But I know the police response is also a lot higher in terms of seriousness if it has that tag attached to it when it's recorded, just for information's sake, really. Okay, the strands of hate crime, which is very relevant for today. So if you're thinking of producing a plan or a bid towards the funding, think about these areas, please. Anything around disability, physical or learning or mental health is perfect. We're happy with that. Race, ethnicity, religious belief, transgender, sexual orientation. So we talk about all of these things in the presentation. So if you're looking to bid into the pot, please consider any one of these strands, and I'm sure we'll look upon it favourably, but I'm sure you know about these strands already. Interesting one these days is around social media hate crime, which is why I said a bit earlier, I'm very keen to try and invite bids that address this in some ways, perhaps a simple video, something interactive that we can use as a resource for the future would really be very interesting. But again, I'd be reliant on your own ideas how you think we could tackle this. But I think the social media issue is growing and will continue to grow, because people have access to social media, and if you turn your phone on and all you're getting is a list of hate in your feed, it must be very upsetting. Let's try and do something about that. Okay. When I present this, also forgive me, these are 2 years old, these statistics, but it gives you an idea of what in GM it's like in terms of numbers of hate crimes and incidents. So in terms of race-related hate crime, 76% of all recorded hate crimes are based on race. 12% on sexuality, 9% based on religion, 8% on disability, and 2% on transgender. Again, these figures are somewhat dated because, as we know, Greater Manchester Police have had some issues with their recording capabilities at the moment, but that's being fixed. So it gives you a flavour, though, of where the main issue is. It would appear to be around race. So I don't propose to theme the bidding process on any one of these, but all are more than suitable, and all are as important as each other. So please don't feel it has to be based on race, because it doesn't. It could be a transgender project, could be a religious project. Whatever you feel is appropriate to your particular group will be looked upon equally favourably. And again, this slide, I won't go into it now, but it talks about the different levels of hate incidents and crime. It can be something as simple as, I wouldn't say it's simple, but a threat, down to a very nasty physical assault can still be deemed to be hate crimes or hate incidents. This is an interesting one to get a bit of debate going as well, is why do we think hate incidents and crimes are underreported? I touched on before, some of the ladies I've met in Hyde and Ashton Town Centre don't report because they get a negative view of the police. They don't really understand what's happened, and therefore I won't report it. They don't think it's serious enough. The police would perhaps not deal with it due to lack of evidence. Who's going to believe me anyway? All the sensitivities, they don't want to the shame of having to report something and not being able to deal with it themselves. Some people do feel that way, and the stigma attached to family, friends and neighbours if they were to report it. And there's a fear of reprisals and threats as well. People are frightened sometimes to report because it may inflame a situation or make it worse. And again, that does tend to encourage a lot of debates when you present this to a large group. Again, I don't want to go into this in too much detail, but again, it's the effect of hate crime and hate incidents on people's well-being, the shock, the anger. Some have to then readjust, it becomes normal to them, and that isn't acceptable. And you'll see a website at the bottom, which is very useful to look at and give some support for young people. And there's a link there to victim support as well. And this may sound negative. This then goes into the impact of hate crime on people, sadness, emotional trauma, increase in perhaps drug dependency, alcohol, overeating on occasions. Low self-esteem is difficult. People can't fulfill of their best if they view themselves in a very negative way. And the drip effect of regular criticism or abuse can do that to people, and they cannot therefore give of their best if they want to do so. And again, the bottom one there is very important: withdrawal and social isolation, a change in people's personality based on the impacts of hate crime. Right, the most important bits now is, who do we tell people? How do we tell people what's the best way forward? So the takeaway from this presentation when I give it is particularly this last slide, but then this one is very important. It's the True Vision reportit.org.uk website. We can easily report things online now, and I would encourage people to do that as much as they feel they need to. Third-party centres still exist. Sadly, the input from them is quite minimal, so we don't tend to get as many reports from those third-party centres. Most reports these days are done by individuals on their phone or laptops at home via the True Vision reportit.org website. Goes to the local police and it's dealt with that way. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, if you like, of a presentation I've used quite often. A little bit relevant to today, but it gives you a feel for what I'm trying to achieve at the moment. And I've given that presentation recently to the West African Development Association based at Ashton, and myself and that group are going to bring that wider across Tameside to different groups as well. So I'll stop talking now. I've been going on a little bit too long, I think, but it gives you a feel for what we're looking for. Happy to take any questions or any ideas you may have. But for Tameside, it's the first time we've done this in terms of a sort of a live fund being offered to groups to bid into against those very simple criteria, but hitting any one of those strands, not in any particular order. So you're more than welcome to bid in based on that if my inputs helped at all. So any questions or views, please feel free.
We've got no questions in the chat, but feel free to just ask.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that, Terry. Really useful. Where can we get more information in terms of about the bid itself, in terms of possibly some guidance notes.
Yeah, sure. Have you been on, yeah, of course, have you been onto the Action Together website? Have you seen
I have, yeah.
Super. Well, that first page should give you as much as you need in terms of the bid itself and the notes. Everything should be in there.
Right, okay.
If you give it a bit of a good look at, if there's a problem, contact the director or perhaps Roma as well, and we'll then talk you through it. But I think it's pretty straightforward on there what's needed. It's quite a
And
simple process.
And is there an application form attached to that?
Yeah, it's all on there, mate. It's all on there.
Okay, and is there a deadline, Terry? Sorry.
Yes, there is. Yeah, 1st of April is what we're looking towards. And we then look to get bids agreed by the 13th, so quite quickly thereafter. Because it's external spend from GM, Combined Authority, to the council, I've got to account for that spend as well. So I'm trying to get it squeezed in as quickly as I can. So have a good look and please give it your best, your best shot.
Definitely. So I'm assuming things like the bid limits and things like that, they're all there in the guidance, yeah?
Yes, that's right. Because the fund is quite small and I'm trying to encourage as many groups as possible, we've kept the maximum bid to £1,000, but there's quite a bit we can do. There's quite a bit we can do with that, I think, to either support an existing project or to kickstart a new idea that you've got. Because I'm hoping year on year that GMCA will provide me with similar amounts of funding every February. Well, I say February, March into April, but the week itself, generally, the Hate Crime Awareness Week is normally the back end of February, which is why we've launched the bid itself. So I'm hoping if this goes well and the evaluation proves it's gone well, I'll get funding year on year. So yes, it's there to fund an existing project, but it could be something that kickstarts, if you like, a series of projects over a number of months or years. So it's quite flexible in that sense.
And sorry, my last initial query was, so you're looking at initially, I'd say, a project that spans this year, so possibly, I know you said the sooner the better. So
well, absolutely, yeah. I mean, certainly we're trying to work on financial years, as you well know, end of March. However, given the pandemic, everything's been squeezed. So we have got some flexibility on that. So it could go into summer. I'm not a huge issue around the spend as such, but I want to get it out there as quickly as I can. But in terms of activity, it doesn't need to be in March, April. It can be later on, okay? Because I want to raise the awareness of this, not just for February and October, but keep it as a sort of running theme through the year. So it's always there in people's minds to sort of, because hate crime doesn't just happen twice a year. It's always there among society. So I think it needs to continue, not to, to upset people with it, but it's always there for people to do something about. Awareness weeks are important, but we all know it's always around us in many communities.
Okay, no, thank you.
Thanks, Abby.
Thanks, Abdul. Just on the back of what you've said, as Terry mentioned, you can get all the information on our website on the funding page. But if you need somebody to look over your application, as a critical friend or anything, don't hesitate to get in touch, because we can do that. Just to make sure that you read, sense check it kind of thing. We've got that as well, that service that we can offer. But if you need any more information above.
Yeah, is it yourself?
Sorry, we've lost you there, Abdul.
No, just Roma. So is it? Okay, let me see. Can you hear me now?
Can now.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah. No, I was just saying. So is it yourself, Roma, that I liaise with? Brilliant. Good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what area you've?
I mean, in terms of timescale, we're looking.
So what area do you deliver in Tameside?
In Tameside, primarily Hyde, but also Ashton. Primarily Hyde, because a big British Bangladesh community.
Yeah.
In Hyde, but also in terms of we've got it's in Ashton as well. I mean, initially because it is a small scheme and we want to get this rolling as soon as possible. Our aim is, the project that we're working on is to have it delivered and concluded before September.
Yeah.
And so it fits in, with what Terry was saying. So I think in Tameside, we're initially looking at Hyde, because the previous antisocial behaviour project was focused on Hyde. And when we looked at some of the crime figures and antisocial behaviour from the crime and disorder the groups, there was a lot happening around Hyde as well. And in terms of strands, we're looking at ethnicity, stroke, belief, because again, there's synergy in terms of those two as well.
Yeah.
So that's our initial thoughts. We've got some ideas and thoughts, but I thought let me find out from today's and give background and what I've done before as well.
Yeah.
We need to speak to the partners on the ground as well, and obviously because it's still the pandemic rules and guidance applies. So obviously we're making sure that we ensure we adhere to all the rules and guidance. I know they're saying things will become a lot more different, hopefully. God willing, fingers crossed in June. We're still planning, as though things are as they are. And if things change, we can upscale, we can do things on the field, on the ground as well. But we've got a good plan where we're using social media, word of mouth, and people that are already on the ground, and networks as well.
I'm a great fan of the very simple, almost like YouTube 1 minute, 1.5 minute videos. They're very, very powerful, and they're always out there, so they can always be replayed and reused as a resource. So I'm a big fan of that, particularly now with the lockdown as well. It's hard to get out face to face with people and stand up and present for various reasons. So anything like that I do like, because it can be reused and it's safer to do as well. But again, that's for yourselves to consider as an option, really.
We've got Nez, you've put in the chat that you're looking at having your service users report to you as part of our project, as part of your project. Is that something you want to?
Yeah, our kind of, obviously we're a mental health charity, but we also we're setting up an LGBT group, which we've been looking at for some time, but we want that to be a mental health LGBT group rather than a social group, because there's a lot of people with mental health problems who have got nowhere to go just because of the sexuality or the gender identity. So we want this to become a comfortable place for people to be able to come and discuss their mental health without being judged. So what we want to do is our project is actually talking to client users and finding out what their view of hate crime is, what have people said to them, and it could be something that we'd would look at and think that, well, that's just a joke, or that's nothing, it's a flippant comment. So we want people to understand the severity of some of these comments that are made on social media, verbally. So we wanted to set up like a poster campaign and do a small kind of video, but kind of using like images rather than somebody talking, so that nobody's sort of like personally on it, because we've had a few people saying they don't want any comeback from that and stuff. So, but we do want to, as part of our group, we want people to be able to report any crimes within our group, because they're in a supported group, and we're working with areas as well so that they can also kind of do that within their groups as well, which they're saying they're doing that, but they're not getting a lot of reports. Yeah, we're also looking at in future going in and doing some kind of work within the schools. We do a talk shop here from age 9 to 19. So we've got Ben on board who does like our youth outreach work. So we're looking at future is going into school and talking about hate crime to do obviously with LGBT and mental health. So that's kind of like looking into the future and where we don't just want to do it as a one-off thing and then it's done. We want it to kind of be a stepping stone to something that we incorporate within our centre. But we really feel that somebody being able to report it to us is a massive thing, because we're a safe space for a lot of people, and people really do open up and share their stuff with us here. So so that's kind of what we're looking at the moment.
There's lots of good little nuggets in there. I think loads of good little ideas. The safe space one is quite a very a modern one as well, because chatting to my colleague at the police there, Chief Inspector Broadstock, that's his next idea, is to encourage in Tameside the safe space idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Rather like they've done with domestic violence. I think Boots have jumped on that one, and you can, with a safe word, go into Boots and report yourself as a domestic violence victim, and they can then do something about it. Something similar for hate crime. So, you know, it's something we're going to be considering. But all those ideas are very relevant.
Thank you.
I'd just ask to be as specific as you can on the bid. I'm sure you will be.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure you'll also think about how can I evaluate it. Even just a case study based on that would be perfect for me.
Yeah.
Because of this money in this project, we've managed to achieve X, Y, Z. It's very simple to do. So
Yeah.
I don't want to be too onerous around the evaluation as such, but just a nice simple case study will certainly satisfy my bosses and then certainly GMCA. I just want to keep the message rolling on. You see that it's not acceptable, because if we get this bit right around hate crime, societies will become a little bit more cohesive because people feel more comfortable in reporting what's happening to them. And I think it's important that we do this kind of project now and then keep rolling it on every year.
We find it a lot with, we have people obviously with complex mental health needs that use our centre, and a lot of people do not share because of the kind of response that they get from people is really negative. So to combine the two is really important, and we think it's going to be really powerful.
Great stuff. Great. No, that's lovely. Thank you. I think we can definitely help you with something like that, without a doubt.
Oh, thank you.
That's okay.
Terry, can I just ask a question? You just mentioned to Nez there about
I've lost you.
Oh,
of course you can. Is it me
am
or
I
you
back?
breaking?
my internet is a little bit unstable at the moment. Am I back or?
You're back. My lights are on. I'm okay here. It's okay.
Brilliant.
My lights are back on.
So can groups attach case studies to their form, or a link to a case study and things like that? Because normally we ask groups not to do that, but in this case.
I agree. I'll stick to your rules, obviously, Ron. My view is more towards the end of the project, towards the outcome. And that's what I'm saying is the outcome could well be a case study. Not beforehand, obviously, but it's more.
Yeah.
So I'll stick to your rules, absolutely, because you've done this before. It's more a case for me that we can say we've managed to achieve that in case study form. I'm happy. So it's more after rather than before.
Okay. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, so any more questions before I stop the recording?
No.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks for coming today. I appreciate it. And good luck.
No,
Thank you.
Appreciate it.